So there's been quite a hubbub about the voice actor strike, especially now since there's been a vote that has authorized a strike at any time, mostly pertaining to those that work in video games. The voice actors union went to renegotiate contracts with the publishers to try and get performance bonuses, where they would get paid extra if a game sells 2, 4, 6, and capping at 8 million copies. They also want stunt pay for those roles that require a lot of screaming, which I think is somewhat reasonable. You're a voice actor, you know what's gonna come with the territory, so you should go in already being compensated for it. Another demand is that there should be a stunt coordinator for motion capture, as sometimes the voice actors will have to don a motion capture suit unexpectedly. Again, I find that reasonable. And finally, they want better transparency, like being told what they're working on and how many voice recording sessions there's going to be. All these demands are somewhat rather reasonable, but I have a very hard time supporting them. I want to because I can understand what they go through can be taxing. Will Wheaton said that it can be emotionally stressful because you're getting into the role to make the character come alive. But the thing is, the people making the game, the artists, the animators, programmers, and music composers, they work longer and harder hours, working up to 7 days a week with no paid overtime, especially during crunch time when the deadline looms. Those people who make the game, they don't get any residuals or royalties at all. They don't get any benefits for putting in all the time and all the physical strain they put on their bodies by working 60 to 80 hours a week during crunch periods, or the emotional stress that programming takes on them. Mike Hollick, the voice actor that played Nico Bellic in Grand Theft Auto 4, said that he got $100,000 from Rockstar for 15 months of work. Let's adjust that for 12 months. In those 12 months, he made $80,000, which is about $95,000 in 2015 dollars when adjusted for inflation. How much did a game developer make in 2006, the same year that Grand Theft Auto 4 came out? About $73,000, or $86,000 in 2015 dollars, which is actually the average it is now for developers. He worked less hours and probably less days and made $7,000 more than the average programmer in 2006. And of course, the more well-known a voice is, the more the person gets paid. Some actors can get $500,000 per game they voice. Some voice actors that are part of a union can get $750 per 4-hour recording session. It's insane, and there's been developers who have said that voice actors not only work less hours, but they do get paid more, and it's unfair to them to ask for residuals when the developers will not get any. One developer on Will Wheaton's blog said that the reason why every time the voice actors union gets shot down is because of the residuals, which is something the game industry doesn't do. And there's people out there who will say that why should the video game industry be any different than movies or TV when it comes to residuals? Well, because one big difference is that with movies and TV shows, acting is the main focus. You sit and watch. That's it. With gaming, it's all about programming and making the game playable because it's interactive. Because there are no residuals, a game is produced and it gets sold, and that's it. It's not like a movie where after the box office, there's DVD sales, streaming services, and repeated TV airings. You know that Robert Downey Jr. gets a check for each time an Iron Man or Avengers movie is aired on TV. Same thing with TV shows. There's repeated airings, DVDs, and streaming services where the residuals come from. Each time a Teen Titans Go episode airs, the voice actors get a check. Maybe someone out there can point me into the direction of the video game channel, or I can play a game from 30 minutes to 2 hours with commercials every 15 minutes. If there's some sort of cable channel out there that lets me play games, please let me know. Because if there is some sort of hidden channel on my cable box that allows people to play games in short bursts with commercial interruption, then yeah, voice actors should get residuals or royalties. But right now, the only place where residual payments can come from are microtransactions that are being put into our $60 games. Maybe season passes, but that money tends to go towards the future of DLC for a game. I'm not saying that voice actors shouldn't get properly compensated for their work. They totally should. Otherwise, we'll go back to the days of really bad voice acting, and no one wants that. You want quality? You have to pay for it. And they should get paid more, especially if they have to put on motion capture suits, which I don't think should be part of their job. But I don't think that they should get paid more than the programmers who do a majority of the really stressful and taxing work by actually building the game. So you can see where I'm coming from when they say that I want to support the voice actors because performance does matter. And I can sympathize with them as well, because I've voice acted in a game before. I did the voice of Shadow the Hedgehog in a fan game called Neosonic Godspeed 2. It was cancelled, but the demo is probably out there somewhere. However, what made me change the topic of this week's rant was the fact that no one was looking at this in the long term. I generally don't like to predict doomsday, but I'll do it if I think something is going to happen if there's a result that no one is even thinking about when it comes to this type of thing. If the voice actors get their residual payments and stunt pay, that could very well up the cost of video games, possibly jacking them up another $10 to cover the cost to pay the voice actors their stunt pay and residuals. We saw a $10 price hike in games, going from $50 to $60 when the 7th generation started. They cited extra developmental costs behind the reason of the increase. We may even see more content carved out for DLC or other things behind a paywall that is microtransactions, hindering player progression through the regular campaign the game has to offer instead of secondary modes, citing that development costs went up, because we all know that they'll pass the costs on to the consumer. Whenever a company has to shell out more money for something, regardless of how small of a hit it is to their wallet, they'll pass the costs on to the customer. They always do. Remember when AT&T was trying to buy T-Mobile from its parent company, Deutsche Telekom, for $39 billion? AT&T was so confident that the deal would go through that they said that they would give Deutsche Telekom a $4 billion breakup package. Well, many companies were opposed to the buyout, but AT&T, in typical AT&T fashion, saying that not allowing them to buy T-Mobile would hinder innovation and would drive up the cost of cell phone plans. When asked why this would occur by the United States Department of Justice, AT&T had no answer. All signs pointed to the deal being blocked, so AT&T backed out and paid the $4 billion breakup package. And then guess what happened? AT&T jacked up all the prices, or at least attempted to. You don't think that the game companies would do the same, or that they would just forego console development and shift right into the mobile like how Konami did? It doesn't matter how much profits they make. It doesn't matter if it didn't affect their bottom line. They want all those pennies in their pocket. Or there could be more games being broken unfinished upon release, but they would not be patched out due to the budget cuts going to pay the voice actors residuals and stunt pay. The people developing games could take a hit to the wallet as well, or be terminated, or have the studio closed, meaning that they'll have to find work at another studio, needing to pack up and move to another city or state. Because if you think that the CEOs of the game companies are going to take the hit to their wallet to pay the voice actors' demands, you're delusional. And of course, the people who make the game are going to want residuals as well, because they're the ones doing all the work. But when we look at some games like Grand Theft Auto 5 that cost $265 million to make, sold 46,760,000 copies, resulting in a minimum return of $2,805,600,000 if each game was sold at $60 apiece, that leaves a profit of $2,540,600,000. Then hell yeah, they should be sharing all that profit with everyone that had a hand in the game. But asking for performance bonuses every 2, 4, 6, and 8 million? If a game sells 2 million copies at about $60 a piece, that's 120 million made. That sounds like a lot, but when you consider that's starting to become the average budget for these AAA games that use all these well-known voice actors, if a game makes the money back that they spent on making it, breaking even, that means there's no profit. And no profit means that there's no money to invest into a new game. And seeking out investors isn't going to help. Investors want profits, not breaking even. If you want me to invest $1 million, you better believe that I want to see a return on that. If I give you $1 million and you return $1 million back, why would I invest in you again? You're not making money. That's why I think it should be done on a case-by-case basis, looking at the budget of a game versus the profit and the budget for the next game. Like Tomb Raider 2013, it cost $100 million to develop and market. In the first year, the game sold about 3.5 million copies, only pulling in about 210 million. If you take out the development costs, that's 110 million in profit, which would be put into the budget of the next game, any overhead that needs to be addressed, or money that needs to be returned to the investors, and that will cut into the profits. Why do you think Rise of the Tomb Raider is an Xbox One exclusive for the first year? After paying off the first game, paying back any investors that may have put money into the game, and covering any overhead, it's quite possible that there wasn't enough of a budget to make a sequel. So, Microsoft paid for exclusive rights for the first year, allowing the game to be developed. I've read through the comments of articles that have talked about this issue. Game developers are mad because they know that they're the ones who do most of the work. Gamers aren't really siding with the voice actors either. They may say good for them, but the gaming community seems to be on the side of the developers for this. Saying that voice actors deserve more money than the developers is absurd. They work less hours than the programmers. Voice acting is such a small part of game development, probably the smallest part of it, and out of all the voice actors that the game industry uses, only 20% are unionized. The other 80% are not. So, go on strike. I dare you. I can guarantee you that someone from the non-unionized 80% will not only be happy to take over for a role, but will give it their all, and be better than the person they replaced from the 20% because the gaming industry will just find talent elsewhere. It's not going to hurt them. Performance does matter, and I think that if the voice actors have to wear a motion capture suit, there should be a trained professional there to help them. I do think that they should get some kind of compensation for the lines that require a lot of screaming. But I think that it's the people making the game that should get first dibs on any bonuses or residuals or royalties before the voice actors. So I'm on the side of the developers. They make the game. They deserve the money because they work longer and harder hours than the voice actors. Because no one will give 10 out of 10 to a terrible game just because the voice acting is good. So guess what? Performance doesn't matter if the game is shit.